Who's the director out there?
You know, they just got rid of, or accepted the resignation of the lady who was
Gonna drag?
doing drama, so I'm not sure what's happening. It's kind of purple.
Yeah. Kind of trying to get back in the groove there, I think. I'll give him one more minute. Good evening and Happy New Year. I call this Iowa City Community School Board meeting on Tuesday, January 8th, 2019 to order. My name is Janet Godwin, and I want to thank those in the audience, those watching on YouTube, and those following on Twitter for joining us tonight. First, I'll start by introducing those at the table with me. To my right, Directors Ruthina Malone, Phil Hemingway, Lori Rotland, Paul Ressler, Sean Eystone, J.P. Clausen, and Kim Colvin, Recording Secretary. And our superintendent is walking in. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak, they need to complete a speaker form found at the table in the lobby and turn it in. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. All community comment directed at non-agenda items and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting during the community comment section of the agenda. With that, we will move to our student representative updates. First from City High, we've got Lottie Goodell and Naomi Murice.
Good evening. So we are coming off a 74-63 win against Waterloo East for our girls basketball team, and they're currently ranked #1 in Class 5A. So it's a super impressive team that's actually led by a lot of juniors. The girls have a lot of high hopes for the future. It's super exciting to watch them.
Next Friday, City will depart from their usual schedule and host a big day of workshops and speakers and field trips and various seminars in honor of MLK. Students and teachers have really come together to plan a day of learning and awareness about race and equality.
2 City High students just committed to Drake for rowing a few days ago, and they're the latest of a few students who have committed to play sports in college.
Show choir has entered the beginning of their competition season, facing off against Muscatine this Saturday. Tomorrow night is their Choirs for a Cause show, which is a joint effort with all 3 high schools to support the junior high and music auxiliary.
Before the break, the Student Senate hosted an annual winter formal, and this is a great way for us to raise money and give club grants with that money.
And lastly, right before break, we had a lot of early admission and early decision come out from colleges. So we have students from City headed off to Dartmouth and Northwestern and Grinnell, to name a few this coming year. So it's very exciting.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the updates. Next up, West High, Paras Pasuk.
Good evening. West High ended 2018 with a variety of musical, academic, and athletic successes. The Student Senate-run annual food drive proved to be a huge success as we collected 3,205 pounds of donations for the Crisis Center, an amount that could potentially serve more than 100 families. Another 100 families were also able to benefit from the donated food that went to West High's own Welcome Center. Our 3-2-1 academic team won Best in State and 21st in the nation, qualifying them to move on to the National Academic Championship later this year. On December 19th, all 10th graders attended the Kirkwood Career Caravan, where they got to meet professionals in a variety of fields and learn about different occupations. West High scored amongst the highest of the 4A schools in the Iowa DOE performance profiles, earning a score of 61.31. This score is meant to reflect the climate of learning and support at West High. Over winter break, several of West's band and jazz band members attended the SIBA Honor Band auditions. After a long day of auditioning, many of those students were accepted to perform at the January 19th event. Finally, West High has begun planning and preparing for the second annual Mlk Day of Learning, which will take place on January 24th. On this unique day, students will be able to participate in a variety of student and teacher-led activities, performances, and lectures that carry messages of equity and acceptance. We are so excited to be able to continue this important tradition into years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. From Liberty High, please come. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Razan Karar. I'm a junior, and I will be representing the Liberty Student Senate tonight. Our biggest focus from the last school board meeting was starting up the food pantry and closet. Now that they are successfully open, we are focused on getting the word out and making sure these services are accessible to all students. All around the school, the biggest topic has been class registration for the upcoming year. The course offerings are now more extensive than ever, and we are excited about the prospect of new classes through the arts, advanced placement, and career offerings. An assembly took place today for sophomores and juniors to learn more about the opportunities offered through AP classes and career academies. Leading us into winter break, where choir and orchestra performances held throughout the day, and choir will also be participating in Dollars for Scholars tomorrow with Weston City. The first show choir competition of the season will be held this weekend. Robotics team will also be headed to their final competition this weekend. A study night will be held tomorrow, with teachers volunteering their time to offer extra assistance as midterms come up. Our athletic teams are also doing really well. Currently, the girls basketball team has a game at home, the boys has a game away, and our boys swim team is at Kennedy competing. The Liberty dance team competed in regionals competition at Chicago over break and placed top 5 in both the pom and jazz divisions. And they are looking forward to heading to nationals in a few weeks. Overall, our transition from winter break has been going smoothly, and we are looking forward to the rest of the new year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next up, ICEA update. Brady?
Hi, President Godwin, Vice President Russler, Directors, Superintendent Murley. Happy New Year. It's nice to be back with everybody. I'd like to extend an invitation to all of you to attend the League of Women Voters of Johnson County's Legislative Forum on, sorry if I'm stealing some of this from you, Steve, on Saturday, January 26th from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. in the Emma Harvett Hall at the Iowa City City Hall. The focus of this forum is education, and ICEA, ICCSD, and UI are proud to be sort of continuing co-sponsors of the event. It's typically well attended. We have all of the legislators from across our county who will attend, so it's a great opportunity to have face-to-face time with them. So if you can attend, it'd be great to see you there. I'd also, on behalf of ICA, like to extend our continued and heartfelt thanks for all of the work that you do on behalf of the students and staff in our district. You have repeatedly demonstrated your commitment to supporting public education and to the people who have been called to this profession. There was a column in the local papers over winter break that talked about policies that you might have seen this, but we might adopt to create better incentives was one of the words used for improving our schools. In particular, Twain Elementary was sort of called out. I guess you might say. So for the public record, I want to recognize and commend the staff at Twain Elementary for their professionalism, expertise, dedication, and passion for helping every student who comes to them. The teachers and administrators and staff at Twain and throughout our district are motivated by the amazing opportunity we have to truly make a difference. Every day, we help students dream big dreams and to have even bigger successes. This work is challenging. Our responsibilities are great and they can be heavy. And I will tell you from a lot of personal experience, they keep you up at night and they also get you up in the morning feeling pretty motivated. We teach because we find joy in the process of helping students learn and grow. We don't need a policy change. We don't need a different incentive. This is what we do every day. This, the opportunity to help students, is our calling. That's why we teach. Thank you.
Thank you, Brady.
Brady, where was the article that you were referring to?
I think it was in the press.
Press citizen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, excuse me, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Brady. Community comment, I don't think we have any community comment sheets for this evening, so we'll move into approving the agenda for tonight. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Consent agenda approval. Phil, do you want to give us an update on the bills?
Yes. First, I want to, I made sure that everyone had a copy of the Des Moines Register from Monday and what's happening with the Waukee School District. And I think it's a cautionary note for us all to take to heart that part of our responsibilities is fiscal oversight, and that we can't sublet it to anyone else. It's ours and ours alone. We had $7.7 million worth of spending, $5.2 million out of the GO bond in this set of bills. There were several questions that arose. I directed that to the finance department, and they answered the questions and that, but I think it's important that we all take our responsibility to go through the bill seriously and put the time in that is required. I'd also like to pull item 8 from the consent agenda.
Before we move to pulling, I just wanted to comment on the bills. I did review them this period, and I don't know, I found something quite interesting that we do as a district, and I just wanted to put that out as public record. Growing up as a child in poverty, one thing that we struggled with as a family is getting eyeglasses. So quite often I had notes being sent home, Ruthina's squinting, Ruthina can't see, she has headaches. What our district does, we have a benevolence fund that actually pays for students in that similar situation. I saw a couple of bills for Walmart and eyeglasses, and I'm like, wait, what? And so I had a conversation with Craig on how that worked, and so I just thought that was a great way to ensure that we're providing students with the tools that they need in order to be ready when they come to the classroom. So I didn't know if other people from the public knew that we did that, so I just wanted to put that on record.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Phil and Ruthina, for going through the bills this month. We've had a request to pull, was it item 8?
Yes.
Phil?
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to pull item 13, appendix 9, just have a quick question.
I move that we approve the consent agenda minus item 8 and 13.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. Christine, I'm not getting yours.
Sorry. Yay.
Thank you. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Phil, item 8?
Yes. First off, I had a question on where this funding was coming from for this. It's $6,500 for a one-day professional development. So my question is where the money's, where are the funds coming for this? And can't someone from the U
Phil,
of I or
Phil,
Brentwood?
sorry to jump in, but you pulled 8, which is the TELF resolution, and I'm assuming you're talking about 9.
No, I'm talking about 8, the solution tree contract.
Which is
That's
number 9.
item 9.
Well, it's 8 on this one, I apologize. This,
Okay.
I'm going by the,
That's probably the one you got before it was finalized and
yeah.
posted, so.
So I have to ask a procedural question. We've already approved the consent agenda, which included item 9, which is where Phil had questions. We should have a motion to approve item 8 and get that done, but then I'm not quite sure how to handle 9.
You've already voted and approved 9.
Yeah.
I don't think you can revisit
Okay,
that.
all
But
right.
maybe, Director Hemingway, if you'd like to send the questions, we'd be more than happy to push an answer out to the board as a whole.
I've asked the questions and that. I apologize, it's an equal induced,
Okay. So is there a motion to approve item 8?
So moved.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. So Appendix 9, this is a general question, and Dwayne, I apologize to not get this to you before a board meeting, but as I was reviewing the various construction projects across the different sites, and I'd seen these before, but it really struck me in my review this time around, all the different change orders associated with unforeseen conditions.
Right.
And I completely get that when you're in the middle of a building project and you tear down a wall and all of a sudden there's something you don't expect or whatever. But it feels like we're seeing more unforeseen conditions even after a building opens.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious how that works. And then how do we learn from these unforeseen conditions that might help us better estimate this in future projects? And then my final question is regarding kind of the slack that we build into our project. Do we assume a certain percentage of unforeseen condition expenses that we just bake into an overall building project budget?
Okay, if you don't mind, I'll answer it three different ways. First one, a lot of the unforeseen conditions, in particular in the Iowa City area, are due to the soil conditions. The second one that's probably the primary one. We had a lot of it at Liberty. We've had a lot at Grant. We've had New Hoover, Alexander. They all had lousy soil conditions. And even the renovated schools at Maine, we've had a considerable change order for unsuitable soil conditions. And we have learned from that. We've tried different techniques. We're doing what we call geotech boring or helical piers, which I don't need to get into all the explanation of that, but we're doing different things rather than just going in and digging a big hole and filling it back up with gravel. There are better ways to do it. So we have learned from that. The builders have learned from that, as well as the architects. The other unforeseen condition that we see a lot of, particularly with Lincoln and Maine and Longfellow, were the wall conditions, structural conditions. The plaster in those buildings is beyond repair, so we ended up taking it, and particularly at Longfellow, we had to remove a lot of plaster. Well, we were proactive at Maine and just took it down. So
You learned from the Longfellow
Right,
experience
right.
as you went into Maine.
It's
Yeah,
same
that's
age
great.
building. I've actually renovated schools where people have moved in and plaster's fallen off the ceiling, and fortunately there wasn't any students in the room when it happened. So it's just a good thing to take it down because it ages. Timing of those change orders, some architects are better at getting the change orders to me as soon as they're required, and some just take time. I won't name them, but there's at least one architect that is typically pretty slow, and I have to prod them a little bit. So, you'll see them at the end of the project when I should have had them 2 months prior to. So, trying to work on that part of it too.
It struck me, especially looking at the Longfellows. I mean, it was probably throughout the course of the project, and even yet now, probably close to $500,000 in unforeseen conditions.
Yeah.
And, that's what, 5% of the overall budget? I just didn't know how we kind of accounted for that and planned for that.
So I do put 5% contingency in all the projects just to deal with that. And I expect it, and sometimes we can put a little bit more in the older projects because we expect more. We don't know what's in the walls. There was the third question. What was it?
It was just, I think you answered. It was like the slack or contingency and.
The timing of the change orders. We don't dictate that. The architects and the design team does. Now, I will say this, that when we're doing unforeseen conditions like with soil conditions, we do get engineering reports, we do know pretty much what the soil composition is. But a lot of times, I have to act on behalf of the district and telling the architects and contractors to keep the project moving. We deal with it and send me the change order. And I make sure, and the architects do too, that the quantities are correct and the amounts are correct before we process them.
Okay, thank you. It was just a general question that helps the feedback there. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
So I'd move that we approve Appendix 9, Item 13.
Actually, you can't.
Oh,
make
I
it.
can't?
No,
Oh,
I
gosh.
move that we approve Appendix 9, Item 13.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm ready to vote. Darn.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
Thank you. Lisa, special education update.
Good evening. I'm here tonight just to provide you with my regular special education update. I think this actual presentation has been moved forward on the agenda, on the calendar, maybe even a couple of months just because of other more pressing issues that were time sensitive at the time. So this is kind of to recap things that have what's been underway this whole entire year so far. So pretty simply put, our work really falls into the category this year of focus. We're trying to focus our work around previously identified areas that we know we want to continue to move forward. And that was, we've talked about it before, but communication, service delivery, instruction, collaboration, climate, culture, and leadership, and professional learning. We'll revisit those areas here in a few minutes, but those were the areas that were identified through the survey process and phone interview and focus group large process that we did last year. So our work really is organized into two main, what will actually be physically documents in the end. The Special Ed District Developed Service Delivery Plan, and I'm going to give you a status update on that, and then also the Special Education Continuous Improvement Plan status update. So, just to recap really quickly, again, we've talked about this several times, but there may be some people in the public who are unaware that, all districts in Iowa have to have a district-developed service delivery plan, which should describe how it is we're going to organize ourselves and our resources and our services as a district to meet our obligation to students that are given to us through federal, state, and local guidance. So there's a particular process that's expected in order for a district to come up with the DDSDP is what we're calling it for short. And that process was already underway when I first came and had been mostly completed with, when I got here during the summer of 2017, it was up for public comment already. So that fall I came and recommended it to the board because the process had been conducted exactly as it was supposed to be. Recommended it to the board for adoption, and I keep saying, which I really mean, I think insightfully, the board sent it back and because there were no public comments that were received about the plan. So that night there were a lot of questions of, well, is it because nobody had a comment, or did people really not even know it was there for comment, or maybe they don't know, maybe they weren't even aware that it was up for adoption. So we mailed it out to every family of IEP students in the district, and then also posted it, everywhere that it was up for comment. And we actually did receive quite a few comments. So we started the whole process over again, really, and that's where Grantwood AEA and the district partnered to have Beth Steenwick, who was our former implementation advisor under the corrective action plan. But we hired her back to help us through the process of gathering that very large body of information and then putting it into a usable format to really drive and guide the advancement of services within the district. So that's what we're doing now. Right now we're in the middle of finalizing drafts of each part of that document. It has several different parts that are required. We've had our different teams take a look at, our leadership teams in the district, take a look at the information that came from the survey, phone interview and focus group, which, we had quite a bit of information. I felt like a really good sample of information. We had over 1,000 survey responses. And so our leadership team analyzed all that and came up with the broad categories of improvement that I had just said. And one big one is service delivery. And while, this plan is called the service delivery plan, it actually includes more than service delivery, but the service delivery description is a main feature of it, and the one that we've been working on most so far. So we have a draft finalized of that, which is being vetted through different groups of people right now for feedback before it goes to the larger plan committee. We have a formal plan committee, but you just can't author an extensive document with 30 people in the room. So we need to bring a draft into that. And that was based on a lot of information. So that's where we are with it right now. Our timeline is our projected public comment period will be during the month of March. And we'll get that, really blast that message out to people and, figure out with Kristen several different ways probably to post it and have it available for comment. The projected board recommendation date right now is April 23rd. I'm on the agenda for that night, but if we would receive comment that caused us to go back again at, different parts of it, that could be postponed, but right now that's what we're shooting for. Our group, our special ed district support team, will be working next week even on starting a conversation with our Grantwood AEA partners and Beth Steenwick, our advisor, on how do we roll this out. We know that rollout of new information is important, especially when there are critical differences in what we're going to be doing. We're not trying to adopt a plan that is going to keep us exactly where we are. We are trying to adopt a plan that will help us lead the district forward and be used as a means of communication for people wanting to know how it is that we deliver, basically how do we organize our services here. So, it's quite an undertaking, but it's extremely important. So we will take the time to do it right. And that's why it has taken so long. Most districts shortcut that process, which is perfectly acceptable and fine. But we've gone way above and beyond what would ever be required because we're not shooting for minimum compliance. We're shooting for advancement. So in those, within all of that large body of information that we had looked at, input, we had noticed that there were a lot of items that kind of fall outside of what would ever be within the scope of that plan. The service delivery plan meets a certain function, and there are certain required parts, and you want to be putting a whole lot of things in it that are not supposed to be part of it. So we know that there were a lot of other things that we want and need to work on. So kind of developed another way to organize all the rest of the work that's underway, and that is just what we're calling our Special Education Continuous Improvement Plan. And that literally is a document. It is a Google document at this point. And we're still assembling it because the goal is not to complete the plan. The goal is to make sure that we at all times know what our current work is in those areas, and that it's well organized, and figure out ways to communicate it appropriately. So we're working on some parts at a time, and then we will move on to a different part. It's a living document. It should be seen as a living document that is written in pencil, that we will continue to gather formative information about how we're doing in those areas, and continue to revise and progress that work as we have data points that tell us that we need to. So again, it was those same priorities that were identified. So again, I just really want to drive home the point that long-term progress requires long-term focus. We're making an overt effort to be focused in our work, not be, chase every distraction that comes by us. We know, based on really solid information, exactly where we really need to be focusing our time. And unless we know that unless we do focus our time in those areas, we won't really make a difference. We might complete some activities, but we won't make a difference that'll move the needle for students. If students don't benefit from it, it doesn't matter if we did it. So we're really trying to keep the focus on the things that are going to pay off for students in the end. So again, I hope that over time, you hear me say lots of times that these are the same takeaways, the areas that we're continuing to work on, and that the level of work that we're presently engaged in is just a little bit different over time. So our next step is finishing the formal DDSDP, strategizing a very careful and comprehensive rollout. The rollout is extremely important. We're somewhat wanting to advance the way that we're doing business here. These aren't small changes. These are, large paradigm shifts at times for staff, for parents, for students. So we want to be mindful of that and plan the right kind of support going into making sure that we get things adequately supported. And then ongoing monitoring of our improvement plan, and continuing to advance that work one step at a time in each of those areas. So at this point, I'll take questions or comments or anything.
I'll just comment. I mean, I like the progress, that it is laid out. It's a big change, paradigm shifts. I like it that it seems boring at this level, and because I think it means the good work's going on and the real work's going on with you and your staff, and what folks are doing and what folks are doing for kids. So I'll be excited to see the plan, both of them. And so as far as the I guess the SECIP. Is that something that you're going to show us at some point, or?
We're trying to figure out a way, and it's not far enough along quite yet to feel comfortable to doing this, but I really want it to be posted publicly.
Okay.
And some sort of interactive way that we can use it actually as a communication method, so that people will know, what are you working on? I mean, what areas are you trying to advance, and maybe I have an idea of what something else you can look into related to that. And so if we had some interactive way for people to submit ideas for consideration to help us with advancing that work, that's what I really want. But like I said, part of the improvement plan is actually communication. And so I want the plan itself to be a communication tool. We'll have a formal plan for communication, along with formal plans for everything else too.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing the DDSP in April and getting that opportunity to dig into more of the details on that. And then similar to JP's comment around the continuous improvement plan, once that's ready to review and have it out there, just how are we tracking? You know, what's working, what's not, what new items do we want to bring forward to that? So to bring the work to life in terms of the outcomes that we're seeing through the work, I think would be, you know, a next phase of these activities. So thank you for your presentation tonight and continuing to focus on this really, really, really important area of the district's work. Other comments or questions from directors? Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it very much. We have an action item, a request for modified supplemental state aid for dropout prevention. Is there anything, Steve, that we need to have as additional context for this action item?
No, this is standard.
Yep.
No, this is the standard part of our application process.
I move that we approve the request form, supplemental state aid for dropout prevention.
Second.
Any conversation, questions? Kim, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up, Director Liaison report. Anything that directors would like to comment on?
Well, we had an event here this morning with Secretary of Agriculture Mike Nag, and he spoke with district staff, the superintendent Craig and Matt put the kind of chaired the event, and we had ag instructors from West Branch and Lone Tree here with some students, and our staff was able to share some concerns with promoting of the class, and also Secretary Ag spoke to the importance of ag education and how it's broader than just in the ag field, and how it's connected with everything in our state that way. And when some of the questions were raised by our staff, some of the best answers came from the students from Lone Tree and West Branch. And it was John Bacon told me later that those students are going to be going to City High to talk with their students, I think, next Monday as well, and I think that that's very positive that way. But I think it's significant that the Secretary of Agriculture took time to come here and speak with us and recognize what we're doing, and he was very appreciative of it and felt that it was one of the big concerns he sees. And why Iowa is unique is because we have the soil, we have the climate, but we also have the people. And that's what makes Iowa significant in how we are an agricultural leader internationally, is because of the people that we have, and it's incumbent upon schools to make sure that we produce the second generation of those people to take on that mantle and carry it on. So I just wanted to let people be aware of that, and I thought that it was great that the staff hosted it, and that we were able to receive Secretary Nag today.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Phil.
I'll just make one comment about the Equity Committee. So with tomorrow night's Equity Committee meeting, and they're onboarding quite a few new members, and we had a lot of applications from some very qualified people in the community. And the process the committee went through, I would call it pretty much an affirmative action process. That is going to be the most diverse committee we've probably ever had in this school district, with racial representation, LGBT. They tried to assess some income stuff to get people from different kind of backgrounds. So it's going to be an extremely diverse committee. I'm excited to kind of see the the energy that comes out of that, and maybe with the different perspectives and things that, you know, I'm not going to think of that somebody from China will think of because of their background. So it was a really exciting process, and I'm excited for them to onboard those folks tomorrow night.
That's great, thank you. Other comments? Hearing none, legislative update.
So as Brady said, we've got the League of Women Voters coming up, and the Friday prior to that, that evening at 4 o'clock, we'll have our local legislative forum in the back. That gives school board members, administrators, teachers, union representatives the opportunity to have some dialogue in a smaller, less formal setting with our area legislators. Now that we're entering the legislative season, we'll probably have better attendance by our legislators. That first one, we had a couple of them that had legitimate concerns that prevented them from being there with us in December, but did tell us that they were excited about being back with us in January. So we hope to have a full contingent there. Obviously, the legislative session is about to get started, and we are cautiously optimistic that many legislators are talking about both the importance of funding for public education and reintroducing the conversation about the 1 cent sales tax, or SAVE. So stay tuned. By the time we come together next time to have this update, we ought to have significantly more information from Des Moines.
Thank you. Questions for Steve? Thank you so much. We'll move into agenda setting. We've got a session on Thursday evening with the Hills City Council, I want to say. Our school board is meeting with them to talk about joint efforts with that group.
Just a reminder that will be at the Hills Elementary School in the
Perfect.
library.
Perfect, thank you. And then on the 22nd, we have a board agenda with a number of presentations slated: school safety update, annual enrollment class size demographics report, annual facility master plan report, instructional support levy, certified budget assumptions discussion, specifically on attendance support busing, and then the astronaut visit update. Anything else? That seems like a pretty full agenda on the 22nd. We also have a work session that evening, and we've agreed to move the Ed Committee into that work session just because it had a light agenda. So on the 22nd, we'll be talking about promoting classes, scheduling registration of courses. We'll talk about TREC programs, as well as Pearl, the special election dates associated with that.
On the meeting agenda, could we have another update on Grant Elementary's progress?
Yeah, we can add that.
Thank you. And then I was wondering also on the work session agenda, if we should continue the discussion about budget.
Yeah, we can definitely add that to it.
Do you need specifics from us?
Maybe.
I mean, is it time to do that, to start getting specific?
You can bring the board up to date on the
Okay. Thank you. Anything else for that work session? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote? Oh, just, yes.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. It almost sets a record.
Almost.
I think we did 137 minutes once, so we're not quite.
I know, that's the, can you